When did you realize that the saying, if they love you, they'll make time for you is true? My dad had been promising to take me fishing for over a year. Every time I brought it up, he'd say the same thing. When I get a weekend off, buddy, soon. But weekends came and went. My birthday, too. Eventually, I just stopped asking. I was in 7th grade when my classmate Jake invited me over for the first time. His house was small and cluttered with toys scattered around and dishes in the sink, but it felt warm somehow. Jake's dad was sitting at the kitchen table when we walked in, still wearing his work uniform from the auto shop. "You must be Brady," he said, standing up to shake my hand. "Jake's been talking about you all week. We went to Jake's room to play video games, but his old console wasn't working right." His dad came in and sat on the floor with us, messing with the wires until he got it running. Then he made us hot chocolate and sat there cracking jokes while we played. When I mentioned I'd never been fishing, Jake's dad's eyes lit up. "We go every Sunday morning. You should come with us." I didn't say anything, but my heart jumped. I'd been begging my dad to take me fishing since I was 10. That night, I went home and quietly asked my dad again, "Can we go fishing this Sunday? Just for a few hours." He looked up from his laptop with that familiar, tired expression. "I've got quarterly reports due Monday morning. Maybe next weekend." "All right. I promise we'll do something soon." I nodded and went to my room, but Sunday morning at 6 a.m., I heard a knock on our door. Jake's dad was standing there in his fishing gear, holding an extra rod. "Ready to catch some fish?" he asked with a big smile. I left a note on the kitchen counter. "Gone fishing with Jake's family." Back by dinner at the lake, Jake's dad showed me how to bait the hook, how to cast without tangling the line, and how to be patient. We didn't catch much, just a couple small bass, but I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt important. Jake's dad asked me about school, about what I wanted to do when I grew up, about my favorite movies. He actually listened to my answers. When I told him about the science project I was working on, he got genuinely excited and started giving me ideas. Around noon, we packed up and drove back. The whole ride home, Jake's dad was telling stories about when he was a kid, making us laugh until our sides hurt. When I got home that evening, my dad was in his office still working on those reports. He looked up when I walked in. "How was fishing?" he asked. "It was amazing," I said. "We caught 2 bass and Jake's dad taught me how to tie different knots." My dad nodded. "That's great, buddy. I'm glad you had fun." There was this weird silence for a moment. Then he said, "You went with them to the lake?" I shrugged. "Yeah, it was only a 30-minute drive." My dad's face changed. He closed his laptop and really looked at me for the first time in months. "I guess I always thought it had to be this big, elaborate trip," he said quietly. "Like we needed to plan some weekend camping adventure or buy expensive gear first." I sat down in the chair across from his desk. "Nope." Jake's dad just grabbed some old rods from his garage and we went. He said fishing is more about the talking than the catching anyway. My dad was quiet for a long time, just staring at his hands. "I keep saying I don't have time," he finally said. "But Jake's dad works 2 jobs, doesn't he?" I nodded. "He fixes cars all week and does landscaping on weekends. But he still makes time for Jake every Sunday morning, no matter what." That hit something in my dad. His shoulders kind of sagged, and he rubbed his face with both hands. "I've been telling myself I'm working all these hours for you," he said, "to give you a better life. But what kind of life is it if we never actually spend time together?" The next Sunday, my dad woke me up at dawn. He was standing in my doorway, holding 2 fishing rods and a tackle box. "Come on," he said. "Let's go see what's biting." We drove to the same lake where I'd gone with Jake's family. My dad was nervous, asking me to show him the knots Jake's dad had taught me. But once we got our lines in the water, something changed. He started talking to me like I was a real person, not just his kid he needed to take care of. My dad had been promising to take me fishing for over a year. Every time I brought it up, he'd say the same thing. "When I get a weekend off, buddy, soon." But weekends came and went like cars on a highway. Fast, loud, and always going somewhere I couldn't follow. My birthday passed too. I stopped asking after a while. It just felt easier to pretend I didn't care. Then one Friday afternoon, my classmate Jake invited me over. His house was small, kind of messy. Toys under the couch, dishes in the sink. But there was laughter echoing from the kitchen, something I hadn't heard in my house for a long time. His dad was sitting at the table in his oil-stained auto shop uniform. "You must be Brady," he said. wiping his hands on a towel and shaking mine with a grin. "Jake's been talking about you all week. We went to Jake's room to play video games, but his old console wasn't working. His dad came in, kneeled on the carpet, and fiddled with the cords until the screen flickered back to life. Then he made us hot chocolate. Real hot chocolate. With whipped cream and everything. And sat there cracking jokes while we played. When I mentioned I'd never been fishing before, Jake's dad's eyes lit up. 'We go every Sunday morning,' he said. 'You should come with us.' I didn't say anything, but my chest felt tight in a good way. That night, I went home and asked my dad again, softly, 'Can we go fishing this Sunday? Just for a few hours?' He looked up from his laptop, his face lit by the cold glow of spreadsheets. 'I've got quarterly reports due Monday, buddy. Maybe next weekend, all right? I promise we'll do something soon.' 'Sure,' I said, and went to my room. But Sunday morning at 6 a.m., there was a knock on our door. Jake's dad stood there in his fishing gear, holding an extra rod. 'Ready to catch some fish?' he said with a smile that made it hard to say no. I left a note on the kitchen counter. Gone fishing with Jake's family. Back by dinner. At the lake, the air smelled like pine and water and something old and calm. Jake's dad showed me how to bait the hook, how to cast without tangling the line, and how to sit still long enough to notice the world breathing around you. We didn't catch much, just 2 small bays, but it didn't matter. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt important. He asked me about school, my favorite movies, what I wanted to be when I grew up. He actually listened, leaning in like my words mattered. When I told him about my science project, he got excited, suggesting ideas like it was the most interesting thing in the world. On the drive home, he told stories about getting into trouble as a kid, making us laugh until our faces hurt. When I got home, my dad was still at his desk. He looked up. 'How was fishing?' 'It was amazing,' I said. 'We caught 2 bass, and Jake's dad taught me how to tie knots.' He nodded. 'That's great, buddy. I'm glad you had fun.' Then his face changed. 'You went with them?' 'Yeah,' I said. 'It was only a half-hour drive.' He was quiet for a moment, then closed his laptop. 'I guess I always thought it had to be this big thing,' he said slowly. 'Some planned trip with gear and tents, not just going.' 'Jake's dad just grabbed 2 rods and went,' I said. He told me fishing's more about talking than catching. My dad rubbed his face, sighing. 'I keep saying I don't have time,' he murmured. 'But Jake's dad works 2 jobs, doesn't he?' I nodded. He fixes cars all week and does landscaping on weekends. But he still makes time. Something broke open in my dad's expression. Guilt, maybe. Or realization. 'I've been telling myself I work all these hours for you,' he said. 'To give you a better life. But what kind of life is it if we never actually spend time together?' The next Sunday, I woke up to the sound of the front door creaking. My dad stood there, holding 2 fishing rods and a tackle box. 'Come on,' he said, smiling nervously. 'Let's see what's biting.' At the lake, he fumbled with the lines, asking me to show him the knots Jake's dad had taught me. Then we cast our lines into the still water. The silence between us felt different this time. Not heavy, but peaceful. And for the first time, my dad didn't look like a man too busy for his son. He just looked like my dad. Story. My girlfriend forced me to quit my theater role, then secretly plotted against my co-star, and falsely accused me of cheating in front of everyone. They say every actor must learn to separate the stage from real life. But what happens when the drama behind the curtain threatens to consume both? For months, I thought I'd found love with Rachel, the kind of girl who laughed at my jokes and cheered me on. Yet, the moment I stepped into the spotlight, the script of my life twisted into something I never could have rehearsed. For nearly 5 months, Rachel and I, a boy aged 19, have been dating. At a college party, we crossed paths through mutual acquaintances and clicked right away. She seems really interested in my interest at first, and she's gorgeous and hilarious. Allow me to introduce myself and share my love of the theater before I go into the details of what transpired. At the age of 15, I made my acting debut in a school play. Mrs. Bennett, my theater instructor, consistently praised my innate abilities and urged me to continue my training. I was in every single major performance our high school had. I realized how much I missed performing when I started college. I joined Center Stage Productions, a local theatrical organization, 7 months ago. Even though it's not a huge or professional company, they put on respectable performances, and I was thrilled to return to acting. Most of my work was in the background when I first started. Participating in crowd scenes or assisting with props are examples of this. Since I was still relatively new, I didn't mind that more seasoned members got to play the more important roles. There were a lot of folks in the group who I got to know throughout this period. There's Emily, for example. She's been performing there for 3 years, and her exceptional talent ensures that she consistently lands lead roles. Then there's David, who's in charge of the lighting and occasionally doubles as an actor. Usually, it's Lucas directing the shows, and Nora is in charge of the clothes. Lucas presented me with my first substantial role offer last week, a supporting character with lines and a backstory. It wasn't the lead. This is the kind of chance I've been waiting for. So, naturally, I was ecstatic. Emily portrayed a young artist whose heart flutters with love for his inspiration. The initial plan was for us to sing a love duet, then share a kiss and have some private moments. Just as the kissing part started, I let Lucas know that I was uneasy about it. I didn't want my first onstage kiss to be in such a big scene. And it wasn't just because Rachel was involved. After 4 months of dating, Rachel and I decided to change the duet to simply an embrace at the line, "I love you." Lucas was very understanding and agreed to make the change. Ethan, a mutual acquaintance of ours, introduced us during a social gathering. At first, she came across as incredibly kind and sympathetic. We hit it off right away due to our shared appreciation for music and cinema. Almost daily, she would drop by my apartment, and we would spend hours chatting or watching TV. When I informed her that I had landed this gig, the trouble began. I was so happy to hear the news from Lucas that I wanted to tell her right away. So, I gave her a call. I filled her in on the part, the scenes, and especially how I had already had the kissing scene cut. At first, she didn't seem to mind at all. She went so far as to express her joy for me and offer her congratulations. But after a little while, things started to shift. Hope you enjoy your rehearsals with Emily, and must be nice to have an excuse to hug other girls. She began sending me these really passive-aggressive texts, and when I called to inquire about her behavior, she instructed me to refrain from bringing up the subject of theater in any conversation with her. I went back to trying to explain that the kissing scenario was staged and not based on genuine emotions and that I had previously declined to participate. However, she was unresponsive. As I embraced another female, she continued to express how difficult it would be for her to see me do the same when I got home. As we embraced, she expressed her fear that she would be consumed by thoughts of whether I was considering Emily. Rachel told me stuff about her background that I didn't know before our dispute. When Rachel was 13 years old, her father absconded with a younger coworker, abandoning her mother. For Rachel, this was a major setback in developing trust in males. Her first high school lover had an affair with her best friend, and her second was a manipulative psychopath who threatened to dump her at any moment she didn't comply with his every whim. After hearing all of this, I could see her point of view. She has good reason to be wary of trusting others after going through a lot. On the other hand, it was hurtful that she didn't believe in me enough to let me perform on stage. This wasn't just a whim on my part to get the approval of the females. I had been immersed in this for a long time before we met. It was my passion. The debate became really contentious. She persisted in making disparaging remarks about me and Emily making out during rehearsals, despite my repeated assurances that there would be no kissing. Oh, so you'll just be feeling her up instead, and I'm sure you'll both be very professional about it. Despite my best efforts to remain composed during debates, her allegations overwhelmed me. My temper got the best of me, and I said some hurtful things. I informed her that her behavior was absurd, and suggested that she could benefit from counseling to address her trust issues rather than projecting them onto me. Because of this, she started crying and I felt awful about it. At some point, I decided to completely disappear from the scene in order to put an end to the argument. I was tired of bickering over it, and she insisted she couldn't see the show if I did it. I informed Lucas I couldn't continue playing the part the following day during practice. Despite his disappointment, he understood. Since we had begun practicing together, Emily also appeared distressed. Then things started to get strange. Emily took me aside after practice and showed me some Instagram messages Rachel had sent her. Extremely hostile texts warned Emily to avoid me and accused her of attempting to kidnap me. To my surprise, Rachel had never once brought up the idea of getting in touch with Emily. This is an extremely tough scenario that I'm now stuck in. I signed up for this ensemble months before I met Rachel, since I've had a passion for the theater ever since high school. However, I also value her feelings and would prefer not to offend her. Even though my friends think she's controlling me, I can't stop protecting her because I know the pain she's been through. According to my sister Nora, Rachel's domineering conduct would only escalate with time, so I should end our relationship. Please tell me how to deal with this. Would it be better to prioritize Rachel's sentiments and find another activity, or to continue with theater and advise her to handle her problems? Is this anything anyone else has dealt with? I would much appreciate any suggestions. First update, in the 3 weeks since I last updated you, things have taken a turn for the worst. When I disappeared, I assumed things would return to normal with Rachel. I couldn't have been more mistaken. Whenever I even brought up the idea of attending to rehearsals, she would become angry. Just being in the same room as Emily, she said, made her feel uneasy. I have continued to attend rehearsals for the past 3 weeks, although my role has been more of a background actor. Our director, Lucas, cast Josh, another member of the ensemble, in my role. Emily attempted to remain professional, despite her evident disappointment. She presumably didn't want to start any more trouble, but I observed that during breaks, she avoided talking to me. Last week, during rehearsal, Emily approached me with a really distressed expression on her face. Something she said to me changed everything, and she took me aside to say it. In our theater group, Rachel apparently had been circulating terrible stories. After each practice, she would covertly meet with me, and she would later claim that Emily was plotting to have me taken from her. Even more outrageously, she spread the rumor that Emily had a history of ending relationships with other men in the group and was notorious for doing so. Oh, come on! None of this was real. After 3 years of dating, Emily and David are still very much in love. The most unfortunate aspect is that Lucas and a few senior colleagues were informed about these rumors. Because of the impact on group dynamics, Lucas felt compelled to convene a special meeting to resolve the matter. Some others had begun to approach Emily differently, staring at her with icy expressions and ignoring her during breaks. It was a truly embarrassing meeting. My private drama was laid bare before the whole group as I stood there. As a result of certain members' suggestions to cut Emily out of the performance to save drama, Emily broke down in tears. Rachel's lies cast doubt on her reputation, despite the fact that she has been an upstanding member of the organization for many years. I was surprised by Rachel's response when I told her about this. There was no attempted denial on her part. But then she flipped the script and said that I had defended Emily, which demonstrated our relationship was rocky. According to her, I wouldn't give a hoot about the rumors if Emily and I were indeed just friends. And then she revealed something else shocking. To make sure I wasn't sneaking off to meet Emily, she said she had been following me after rehearsals. I was taken aback. There was absolutely nothing improper with her essentially following me around. I inquired as to the duration of this, and she casually mentioned that it began immediately upon my being cast in the role. After rehearsal was over, she would wait across the street in her car before following me home. When I felt totally bewildered, I decided to bring up Rachel's behavior with her mom. Because Rachel and her mom are really close, I was hoping she could talk some sense into her. It was a major error of judgment. Her parents totally supported her daughter instead of worrying about her actions. She accused me of being insensitive to Rachel's traumatic history and stated that I should stop acting if I loved her. And after that, Rachel's mom contacted my folks. She accused me of subjecting her daughter to mental torment because I knew about her. History of trauma from unfaithful husbands. It was a difficult time for my parents. In an effort to maintain harmony, my dad suggested I pursue something else. However, my mom finds Rachel's actions worrisome. Things had become rather heated in the theater. Rachel has gained allies who believe her account of Emily's situation. The implication is that I'm taking pleasure in luring the two girls on. Some people say I should confront Rachel and stick up for Emily. Even though he's been quite understanding, Emily's boyfriend, David, is clearly becoming increasingly upset by the situation. Yesterday, Ethan, our mutual acquaintance who introduced us, told me that Rachel has been spreading rumors around campus about how Emily seduced me. The very reason I wanted to act out the scene with her. Similar to her father and previous partners, she is portraying herself as the victim of an unfaithful lover. There is no way out of this jam. I refuse to give in to Rachel's harsh behavior by giving up on theater, which is my life's work and my love. Staying, though, is making things worse for everyone, particularly for the undeserving Emily. Even if it's only a message about when rehearsals are. Rachel is now very sensitive about checking my phone for any messages from anyone in the theater company. At this point, I'm at a loss for action. Rachel starts crying and brings up her traumatic background every time I try to have a conversation with her about her behavior. The idea of losing me, she says, would be as devastating as losing everyone else she has ever trusted. However, her conduct is becoming increasingly domineering and compulsive daily. Nora, my sister, has been nagging me to stop this before it becomes worse. Even considering that makes me feel bad. Rachel is hurting, and I care about her, even though everything is going on. On the other hand, I'm beginning to feel constricted. The stress of this scenario is getting to be too much. Therefore, I would appreciate some guidance on how to proceed. I suppose I'll give it another go with Rachel, but I'm really beginning to doubt that anything will ever change. Notify us again if something significant occurs. Second update. Something happened yesterday that altered the course of events entirely. During rehearsal, David, Emily's boyfriend, asked to speak with me alone. I first assumed he was distressed by the drama that was impacting Emily. What he showed me, though, rendered me mute. A year ago, David and Rachel exchanged Instagram messages, which David then showed me on his phone. Despite his relationship with Emily, the communications revealed that Rachel was actively seeking to meet up with him alone, sending him late-night SMS and flirting with him all the time. Even though this happened months before Rachel and I began dating, it utterly destroyed my perception of her. The worst part, though, was yet to come. Everything fell into place when David said anything. It wasn't until we met that Rachel made her 3 separate attempts to join our theater company. She would consistently turn up to auditions, but her skills were never considered. When Emily landed the part she desired at her last audition, which was approximately 8 months ago, she suffered a major breakdown. Emily, she claimed, was sleeping her way to the top, and Lucas was biased against her. As far as David is concerned, Rachel's fixation on our theater group dates back quite some time. She was a dedicated fan who would attend every gig and even followed the band on social media. She had a sneak peek at my intention to join the group the moment we crossed paths at that gathering, thanks to Ethan. Subsequently, Ethan verified this by stating that Rachel had requested him to introduce us upon learning of my interest in the theater. The entire jealousy situation around my scene with Emily had nothing to do with me, because Emily was aware of Rachel's attempts to end her relationship with David. Rachel was concerned that I would develop feelings for her. Her fear was that Emily would come clean about her actions in the past. Exposing her deceit, Rachel exhibited a terrifying reaction when I presented her with the messages and all of my knowledge. There was no attempt at denial on her part. She scoffed and claimed I acted too innocently. Things became complex when she began to develop feelings for me, but she did confess that her original plan was to use me as a weapon to get revenge on Emily. Rachel may have a second opportunity to join the group. She reasoned if she could convince everyone that Emily was a homewrecker. Throughout, she had pretended to be a victim in order to control me and everyone else by drawing on her traumatic history. What a complete I feel. My belief in her lies caused me to defend her to everyone, quit my role, and come dangerously close to losing my theater group pals. She used her sobs and tales of her traumatic background to influence me, and I fell for it. Even wanting to act in a small theater piece made me question my abilities and feel bad. Coming to terms with the number of individuals she harmed is the most difficult aspect. Emily nearly had her standing in the group destroyed. Even now, there are some who treat Emily differently because they believe Rachel when she lies because of the poisonous atmosphere in the organization. Lucas is considering scrapping the production completely. Ethan was just as surprised as I was when I told him everything. The reason Rachel wanted to meet with me was apparently explained to him in a very different light by Rachel herself. She told me that she believed I was really gifted after seeing me sing at a college event. Now that he introduced us, Ethan feels terrible. My sister Nora only remarked, "I told you so after I informed her of everything." I was too oblivious to notice that she had recognized Rachel's deceit from the start. My folks said they were unaware of Rachel's manipulative nature and apologized for suggesting I leave the theater. I needed a few days apart to clear my thoughts, so I'm writing this post from my sister's place. Rachel, in between apologizing and threatening to reveal that I sought her initially, has been bombarding my phone with messages. She has gone so far as to try to incite my college pals to betray me by contacting them. Now I know it's time to end our relationship and remove Rachel from my life. However, her potential response is causing me concern. She has already demonstrated her willingness to resort to extreme measures in order to harm those who oppose her. I'm concerned about how to mend fences with the theater troupe, and more specifically with Emily, who took the brunt of my inability to see Rachel for what she really is. As soon as I make a decision, I will provide another update. For the moment, all I needed to do was vent my frustrations about how bizarre this whole thing has become. Third upgrade, I wanted to provide a final update since everything with Rachel transpired 3 months ago. As soon as I found out she was obsessed with the theatrical company and tried to manipulate everyone, I ended our relationship. It was a very ugly split. She went into a tailspin the moment I informed her it was over. She screamed and sobbed her way into my flat on more than one occasion. To get her to go, I had to threaten to contact the authorities. Then she began contacting me and spreading college-level allegations about me using fictitious social media accounts. She went around, telling everyone that I was emotionally abusive and that I had cheated on her with Emily. She spent the better part of a month attempting various routes to reach me. Outside of class, she would message my friends with false accusations about me, and she even attempted to approach my parents. At last, I was able to get a restraining order against her with the help of my sister, Nora, who assisted me in documenting everything. Eventually, she stopped, so it must have worked. I just received an even better part in our upcoming play, and I'm back in the theater. Our director, Lucas, expressed regret for his earlier failure to detect Rachel's deceit. He claimed to have recognized her from her earlier auditions, but had failed to make the connection until now. Following the revelation of Rachel's manipulation, the group has been incredibly supportive. All of this led to Emily and I becoming close friends. In the aftermath of our breakup, she was there for me and helped me realize how manipulative Rachel had been. David and she are still together, and they will be married next year. It got so bad that they wanted me to be in their wedding party. Some members who had been mistreated by Emily and believed Rachel's lies later came forward to express their regret. Most people stayed in the group, and now that the drama has passed, we're all attempting to put it behind us. There is a marked improvement in morale and productivity in our new manufacturing. After introducing us, Ethan severed all relations with Rachel as well. Even before we met, he discovered she had been deceiving him on several occasions. Her attempts to sow discord in his other friendships were evident as well. Rumor has it that Rachel has started seeing someone from the neighboring theatrical company, according to our common friends. I considered trying to find a way to caution him about her actions. But then I remembered it wasn't my job to do so. I can only pray that she isn't treating him the same way. Considering how this person was only after me for her own vengeance, I still can't believe I was so naive as to nearly sacrifice what I loved for them. The warning signs were there from the start. As my sister Nora had indicated, I felt awful about Rachel's reported prior pain, so I chose to disregard them. I learned a lot about asserting my independence and refusing to be manipulated by others, guilt or emotional manipulation from this entire process. I'm enjoying doing what I love most, performing in the theater, and I'm putting my whole emphasis on it right now. I still occasionally receive anonymous messages from Rachel using new phony identities. However, I simply block them all just in case. I'm documenting every time she tries to get in touch with me because the restraining order is still active. Eliminating that poison has made life so much better. There are professional theatrical organizations in town that I'm considering applying to as well. The lesson here is that I shouldn't let other people to dictate my every move or stifle my acting dreams. In the end, after all the turmoil, I realized something important. Family is the true foundation. People may walk away, betray or deceive you, but family remains. The quiet force that protects you, worries for you, and reminds you of your worth. Family love is not loud or glamorous, yet it is stronger and more genuine than any other bond. In this journey, without my parents' patience and my sister's firmness, I might have lost both my dream and myself. I've come to understand that family doesn't always tell us what we want to hear, but they always give us the words we need to stand.